1, we are live.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Karen. And good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to the Toronto Senior Housing Corporation board meeting. My name is Fareed Amin. Today is Thursday, October the 17th, and I have the pleasure of chairing, the privilege of chairing this committee. Today, we've got a very ambitious agenda, not unlike most meetings of the TSHC. Our agenda today will focus on some committee updates from Councillor Crisanti and from Linda. We'll discuss a bit about board and governance policies. We'll talk a bit about people and culture. We'll also have a discussion on the use of our community space and discuss the policy attached to that. We'll have a biannual report from our OCHI commissioner, after which we will have our audit, finance, and risk committee update. We'll then move into closed session, and we'll reconvene back in the public realm to report on the items that required approval from the closed session. Before I proceed, I just want to acknowledge that the eve of October the 11th through October the 12th was Yom Kippur, and this is one of the most important Jewish high holidays. On Monday, October the 14th, many also celebrated Thanksgiving. I think, dare I say, we have a lot to be thankful for, living in the country we live, and for all of the blessings that we have. So I hope everyone had a happy and thankful Thanksgiving. And today, October the 17th, in many Jewish communities, is also the first day of Sukkot. And I would also like to mention that October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And this is timely because this is one of the items we have scheduled for discussion at today's meeting. I would also like to note that items 14 and 19 to 22 are consent agenda items. So I will deem that no one has any concerns unless this is identified prior to us approving the public agenda. We have one deputation today, which is on item number 10, and I'll ask our deputant to speak at that time. I also want to acknowledge, many of you know that one of our esteemed colleagues passed away recently. That is Maureen, and I want to say once again, I know through our committees and through my last chat with this group and with the public, we paid tribute to Maureen, but I don't think we can do that in a way that truly represents the legacy that she has left. And at the risk of repeating myself, I did mention that, the best thing we can do for Maureen is to continue her legacy. There will be a celebration of Maureen's life, and that information will be available to the board and will be posted shortly. So once again, as we sort of contemplate and discuss our meeting today, I'll take a page from Linda's book and say that, we should think and contemplate about Maureen's life and the legacy, and reflect perhaps on our own life and what we can do to make a difference or make an impact in the public realm. On that note, I'd like to proceed with the Land and African Ancestral Acknowledgement. To Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. And now for the African Ancestral Acknowledgement, Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation also acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in the generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. We will now proceed with item 3, which is the approval of the public agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yeah. Mr. Chair,
Go ahead,
can you
Lawrence.
please clarify these consent agenda items? Are you referring to the closed session items?
No, I'm referring to those items that are here for information. And if unless there is a request from a member of the committee to have a conversation, we will assume that those items have been approved. Those items were ones that have been brought forward to committee deliberations before.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. So are there any questions or concerns or amendments to the public agenda? Hearing none, may I have someone move that agenda be approved?
I so move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Warren, seconded by Councillor Crisanti. All in favor? That is approved. Okay, we'll now proceed to the conflict of interest. Does anyone have any conflict of interest? Seeing none, I would encourage you, if one arises during the course of the meeting, please identify it and we will address it in due course. We'll now move to item number 5, which is approval of the public session board minutes of July the 18th, 2024. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, moved by Councillor Crisanti, seconded by Jim. All in favor? That is approved. We will now proceed to item number 6, which is approval of the closed session board minutes of July the 18th, 2024. Are there any amendments to those minutes? Hearing none, may I have someone move that those minutes be approved as correct?
So move, Mr. Chair.
So move, Linda.
Moved by Warren, seconded by Linda. All in favor? That is approved. We'll now proceed to item number 7, which is the action item review. Does anyone have any questions, any additions to that action item list? If not, I'll ask Carol to give a quick update on where we are in the cybersecurity training. Okay,
Thank you.
seeing none, go ahead, Carol.
Sorry, a little bit anxious there. Through the chair, so from a cybersecurity standpoint, we have 2023 cybersecurity. Currently, I have noted that 85% have completed. So of the 7 persons to complete, board members, we have 6 that have completed, and I just need 1 confirmation. Same for the phishing and spoofing training. Our creating strong passwords is 0 of 7, and that may be more aligned to the rollout. Recently, so as of October 1st, we have 2024 cybersecurity training that has been launched. That training will eclipse the previous training. And so strong passwords, phishing and spoofing, and our cybersecurity will be in 1 training. So that has been sent to everyone with TSHC email. And so we can work on doing the same to launch the training and get the acknowledgements from the board members. So just to, in a nutshell, if the training hasn't been completed to date, we will be focusing on the 2024 cybersecurity training, which will encompass all components.
All right, thanks, Carol, and thanks to those members who were able to complete the training, both the cybersecurity 2023 as well as the phishing and spoofing. I have a question though on the password, strength of the password. I mean, you're losing me here. Were we asked to sort of prepare? I mean, I don't have a TSHC account, or so I'm not sure what the reference is to strong passwords.
So there was a strong password training that was sent out to TSHC, those with email addresses. And so you may have an email address that you may not actively use, which is why you may not have seen the training. so it wasn't sent out to everyone, but it is part of 2024. So there's no need for board members to go back and to complete this training, because the 2024 training will eclipse all these other three, and it will include strong passwords in that training as well.
All right, great, thanks. And at some point in time, I think we should probably regularize this. If all of us need to be on a common platform and have a TSHC email, we should do that. But we can sort of defer that discussion for another day. But thanks for that update. Are there any questions for Carol? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on.
I have a question, and I had my hand
Sorry,
up.
go ahead, Jim.
If we took the 2023 training, do we need to do the 2024 training as well?
So through the chair, yes, Jim, all of us will need to do it because there are updates in that training. So we will all need to complete that training.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
So we'll now move to item number 8, which is a CEO update and the TSHC service model. So over to our esteemed CEO. Sorry, Brenda. Sorry, before you go, I see Brenda has her hand up. Brenda, you have a question on the previous item? You're on mute.
Sorry, just following your points, Reed. I also didn't have a Toronto Seniors Housing email, and I completed the 2023. So I think my question was answered by Jim. We'll all have to do it, and please instruct us if you do want us all to be on the Toronto, because myself and one other person had problems getting on. There was some technical IT issue. Never got resolved, and I just maintained my regular email. So that's what happened in terms of the history.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Chair, I'll work with Grant to verify who has a TSHC email, and then I will work to verify the training. There's one person outstanding, and if they had completed the training, then you are 100% compliant on cybersecurity and spoofing. So it's a great result. So I will work to verify that, as I said, with Grant, and then we will assign the training accordingly.
All right, thank you, Carol. All right, Tom, over to you.
Yes, through the chair, and thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. And I too just wanted to echo Fareed's remarks and note that on behalf of the staff at Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, we would like to also extend our sincere condolences to Maureen Clohessie's family and friends. Maureen's contributions to the board and to Toronto Seniors Housing were so valuable, and she will be missed. Also, just our tribute to Maureen. And then just wanting to also echo some of the comments around our staff event that was held recently on October 1st. And we did have a few pictures that we wanted to share with the board as I kind of speak, and they can just kind of scroll through those. And as I continue with the update, and just as you heard, it really was such a successful day. We had a great turnout, and certainly the weather ended up cooperating. We were a wee bit nervous at first, and it was really wonderful to see some of our board members there, Fareed, Linda, and Brenda. Thank you for being able to attend, and I just also, for myself, just kind of seeing the joy of the staff and the camaraderie at that session, and even a wee bit of competitiveness around some of the games. It was really such a good day, and also, we had hundreds of pictures that were just kind of taken from this event. And, for me, it just really spoke to I've spoken about some of the kind of the cultural aspects and the feel of the day, but also there's just such the diversity that we see within our staff, which is, reflective of our community. And so just all around, just wanting to acknowledge that event today. And just further in my remarks, and I just really, I think it's important for us to keep in the forefront that, and this was at QTE recently, was with the tenant experience survey and our action plan. And just reiterating with the board that the priority areas within those directions within that work around the tenants wanting to see that strengthening of our community participation, improving referrals to services and supports, creating more opportunities for tenants to share their concerns and complaints, and enhancing our staff responsiveness. The responses were high, but still work to do. And so just wanting to reaffirm with the board just the importance that we feel around the tenant experience survey and the action plan that's going to be coming forward. And also just kind of one final note that as we move closer to the end of 2024, just I wanted to let you know that we will be working really diligently over the next couple of weeks to bring together the proposed board and board committee meeting schedule for 2025. I would imagine some of you already trying to look at your vacation plans for 2025. So we'll get that out there as soon as we can. And then these are planned to come to the CGHRC in November and to the board in December for approval. And the chair, that is my update. Are you on, Farida?
Thanks. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that update. And also just to echo some of the sentiments you expressed, I mean, it was a great staff event, and thanks to you and the planning team and all the staff who attended that event. It was a great camaraderie, lots of collaboration, and that's the kind of workplace and environment I think we want to promote. And so thanks all around. Are there any questions for Tom? All right. If not, Tom, why don't we go into the TSHC service model update?
Yes, so through the chair, and just a bit of context around why you are seeing this at the board today. We did present this for information at the corporate governance and HR committee meeting, and that was our understanding that what was required to do in terms of this report going to Economic and Community Development Committee next week, October the 23rd, but very late last week. Friday afternoon, to be exact, we learned that there needed to be board approval before it went to council. And so this is a bit of a kind of a formality today with the board in terms of getting that approval. Nonetheless, just kind of reiterating with this report that it was in response to the City Council's direction that was made in July 24th of this year, which requested more information about Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation's work in delivering the integrated service model. And certainly we really welcome this opportunity to share our highlights with this committee over the Committee of Council over the next 2 years. And just briefly, the report covers how the service model is reflected in our 83 buildings. And if you look at the report in the appendix, we've created profiles of all 83 buildings, which help to reflect how the resources and the integrated service model is reflected in each of the buildings. And as importantly, the report also shows how we have used the reallocation of some of our internal staffing resources to kind of strengthen the work and the work and support for our tenants. So whether was a complex tenancy team, the pest management or the environmental health team, as we called it. Those have all really helped to build a strong organization. Also, there was the request in terms of our partnership, our work with the Parks and Recreation, and also with Toronto Public Health, and so there's some reference to that in the report, but as well we also share the many other kind of interactions, relationships that we have with other city divisions, really to strengthen this organization. And so just also we felt it was really important in this report that we illustrate how we have seen outcomes that reflect the integration of the integrated service model. So it's one thing to give, kind of practical examples, but really every area that we speak to in this report is supported by outcome indicators. And so I just wanted to provide once again a summary of that report. And with the board's approval, then it will be moving we'll be sharing it with the city for inclusion at the ECDC committee. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. As Tom mentioned, we had a good discussion at committee. But before we move to the approval, Brenda.
Thanks. That report's not in our minute package, board minutes package, is it? The current one.
It was sent as the separate the other day, Brenda, that I talked to you about.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, this was the 4-page. Yeah.
Okay, then I'll look for it then. I'm not certain I got it, but I'll check it. Thank you then.
All right. Yeah, as Tom said, it's basically an update being provided to the shareholder on where we are on this initiative. So this is, are there any other questions on the report? All right, if not, I need approval. So may I ask someone to move that the board approve the report from the CEO dated October 8th, 2024, and that and directed the report package be transmitted to the Toronto City Council through the Economic and Community Development Committee on behalf of the board. Councillor Crisanti moved. May I have a seconder, please? Brenda, all in favor? That is approved. With all in favor, be it resolved that the report package from the CEO dated October 8th, 2024 be transmitted to Toronto City Council through the Economic and Community Development Committee. That motion has been approved. We'll now move to item number 9, which is an update from the chair of our corporate and corporate governance and human resources committee. So Councillor Crisanti, over to you, sir.
Fareed, thank you very much. And again, good afternoon, everyone. And I hope everyone's doing well. At our last meeting on October 7th, we had a full agenda. And of course, the agenda at that meeting was focusing on board and governance policy and people and culture policies. And all of these are being brought forward at this meeting today for approval right after my update. Additionally, I shared that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month and Women's History Month at the committee. I also noted that October 10th reflected 2 days of significance, which were World Mental Health Day and World Homeless Day. We also discussed our tenant human rights policy, which will be coming to the board at the October 24th meeting for approval. And as Tom mentioned earlier, the CGHR committee will be meeting again on November 21st, where we will be focusing on our 25 board and committee meeting schedules, and we will bring that to the board in December for approval. And Fareed, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions, any considerations for Councillor Crisanti? Okay. If not, we'll now move to item number 9A, which is the board and governance policies. And Mr. Coffey, over to you.
Thank you. So through the chair, and good afternoon, everybody. Before you today is a report further to several governance-related policies for board and committee. If the board may recall, this is an item that we took to the Corporate Governance and HR Committee back in June of this year. Initially, there was a review at that time. Several committee members asked for an additional opportunity to provide some input and feedback. So we did circulate out and got some additional input and feedback on all these policies from the board and also from the board chair. We since and subsequently updated the materials that are in the package today. And these are the Board of Directors Code of Ethics and Conduct Policy, the Board of Directors Conflict of Interest Policy, the Board and Board Committee Meeting Procedures, the Board of Directors Reimbursement Policy, and the Director Education and Board Development Policy. Those are all the policies that are brought before you for approval. And we're also looking to retire some policies as well, including the interim deputation policy, the board of directors closed meeting session policy, the interim board reimbursement policy, and the external directorship policy. The components of some of these policies have now been incorporated into the ones that we're bringing forward. At the Corporate and Governance and Human Resources Committee on October the 7th last week, a presentation was given on a summary of all of the changes associated with each of these policies and how the feedback was reflected from the additional cycle of input that we had taken on all of these, and then they were approved to be brought forward for consideration for approval here at the board today. So I'm not going to walk through that presentation again, since it was walked through in detail at the committee last week. But I will open up for any questions at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And before I open up for question, I just want to thank Tom and his team. I mean, this was a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting went into this, and this was truly, I think, a very consultative, very open, very transparent. Staff sort of listened to feedback from the board and others and came back with some policies that I think are better because of engagement. I also want to remind the board members that these policies are dynamic, right? So while the changes may have been made now, there will be opportunity as new things come to light for us to take another look at these policies. So I know a lot of folks, Grant, supported you in this initiative, and I want to thank you and the staff, and also thank the board members. I mean, I think, board members were fully engaged in this, and they participated, and I think as a result of that, we're able to have a much more robust set of policies, and hopefully it will be a bit more enduring than the last set we had. Brenda, go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same for Rita about the work that staff have done. It's quite extraordinary, really. I know how much work this takes. And I appreciate the tone and language, particularly the employee policies. I thought it struck the right tone, easy to read, easy to communicate. So, and this was all done in-house, wasn't it? It wasn't done with any external consultants and all that. You know my feeling about external consultants sometimes. So, and I had two quick questions about something, but I just wanted to say that because I know the work involved with these things, having been through some of it before myself. So my quick question was the board orientation information. They're trying to put together board orientation materials in the package. Has that been completed, or is it going to be completed?
So through the chair and Brenda, so we do have a board orientation package and presentation that we have developed. That was something we've used when new board members have joined, and we walked them through the board orientation. And that is actually built off of the original orientation materials that the city created when TSHC was formed as a corporation and the board was first brought together. However, notwithstanding that, which is a good a good opportunity for us to introduce and bring new board members up to speed, we are looking at doing additional board orientation and discussions in a workshop forum for existing board members as well.
Yeah.
In particular, to walk through a few of the things that questions that may be on your mind, and some of the procedural things that, as we've been evolving, opportunities for improvements that we continue to seek. So that is something we haven't yet scheduled. We do have an intent to do something on that, and help with existing board members to continue to be engaged in opportunities for understanding these things in more detail.
Well, I just want to comment. I received very little orientation as one of the original board members, so don't assume anyone got anything. So I would suggest that we share the existing materials with the existing board, not wait for new board members, okay? Because we haven't any really, other than the councilors changed, and we had one tenant rep that changed. So I would suggest that we could share it now, and then going forward, I was going to suggest if we could actively engage in board education and development on an ongoing basis, whether it's through online learning or group session. I'm easy on that, but I think it's important just to keep us all up to date, particularly understanding the city processes, the housing processes, the service agreement stuff, which is still not completely resolved, but I think understanding that background, I think, is useful. And my last question was on the Board of Director Education, the formal Board of Director Education. Will there be a list of approved courses that you would provide us, or suggestions, and similar any external learning opportunities? I'm asking this because tribunal boards, there is a tribunal association, an annual meeting, and kind of almost mandatory attendance required, but we're not a tribunal, okay? So we couldn't hook in with that. So failing that, are there other learning opportunities that would be suitable? And if they could be suggested to us, not only because it might be an approved list, but just suggestion as well. So I just wanted to know if there was an opportunity, or were you planning on presenting an approved list of credentials and courses that we could partake in?
Through the chair, thank you, Brenda. Just to your first question about, yes, we can certainly circulate out the existing board orientation, presentation, and materials. We will do that as a follow-up. With regards to board education and a list of courses, we do not have a list of courses that has been developed at this stage. However, I am aware of some resources that we may be able to take advantage of and or consider for board members from an education perspective. But we'd also like to have a conversation with the board in more detail about this and get some input as to, you know, what some of those areas might be in addition to type of feedback you're providing here. So yes, that is something that I think would make sense to consider developing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I certainly would like to be privy to that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll just read the motion out before I ask for a mover and a seconder. So again, thank you, Grant, and please pass on our thanks to staff. So we are looking for approval of these policies. May I ask someone to move that the board A, approve the Board of Directors Code of Ethics and Conduct. Number 2, approve the Board of Directors Conflict of Interest Policy. Number 3, approve the board and board committee meeting procedures. Number 4, approve the Board of Directors reimbursement policy. Number 5, approve the Director Education and Board Development policy. Number 6, retire the interim deputation policy effective October 24th, 2024. Number 7, retire the Board of Directors closed meeting policy effective October 24th, 2024. Number 8, retire the interim board reimbursement policy effective October 24th, 2024. And finally, number 9, retire the external directorship policy effective October 2024. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Linda, seconded by Jim. All in favor? That is approved. With all in favor, be it resolved that the board approves and adopts the TSHC board and governance policies as presented. So we'll now move on to item number 9B. And Dave, you're on.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, following the same process that Grant outlined with the board policies, People and Culture is also involved in a similar process review of all people and culture policies. 3 policies were presented to the corporate HR and governance and HR committee in June. The Employee Code of Conduct, the Employee Conflict of Interest, and our Whistleblower Protection Policy. And again, as a result of discussions at the meeting and review by the chair and the request by the chair of the Audit, Finance, and Risk Committee, amendments were made to these policies. The whistleblower policy has been deferred and has been referred to the AFRC committee at the request of the committee chair to ensure that there's close alignment with the corporate fraud prevention policy, which is under review right now, and that will come back to the board at a later date. And so in the package there was a summary of the changes that were made to the Employee Code of Conduct and the Employee Conflict of Interest policy. They're in your package, and happy to answer any questions about those 2 policies.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, Dave. Are there any questions for Dave? Go ahead. Go ahead, Brenda.
Thank you. Just a quick question. On employee code of conduct and sorry, there seems to be some feedback.
Yeah,
Is
there
it
seems to be
just
an
me?
echo somewhere. No, I'm hearing it as well.
Okay. It was just whether there was a need, there was no phrase anti-racist policy. There was lots of other language, of course, but I didn't know whether it was a city policy, city agencies to, or if the city itself had an quote unquote anti-racist policy priority. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. If so, that's fine. But I just didn't know if we were consistent with that sort of language that the city may or may not be using. Any?
Through the chair, Brenda,
Yeah.
the policy likely refers to our harassment and discrimination policy.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes, which would have deal with racism and anti-racism, but it's not explicit. I will.
That's right.
Take this back and review review City of Toronto policy, and if we need some and change our policy, that we can do that.
I appreciate that because I don't mean it just to be performative, as you know, the great phrase we're using. But anti-racism is an explicit category as distinct from discrimination, right? So I just wondered if and I couldn't remember if the city had a language to that effect or not. So I'd appreciate some sort of review. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brenda. Thank you very much, Dave. Are there any other questions?
Through the chair, I just wanted to reiterate. So it also, you see in some of the policy changes that we will have a formal IDEA, so inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility lens. And so we're working on that currently through our strategy development. So once we have that IDEA lens completed, that will also be a tool against which we measure our policies.
That's great. Thank you. And that's a discussion we also had in the context of the previous policies as well. It's just to look at all of this stuff from that lens to identify any systemic issues that might exist in the organization. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, I did see that. Thanks, Carol.
Okay. Are there any additional questions or comments? If not, again, we would need to approve this. So may I ask someone move that the board approve the employee code of conduct policy and the employee conflict of interest policy?
So moved, Mr. Chair. It's Warren.
Thank you very much, Warren. Moved by Warren, seconded by Brenda. All in favor? That is approved. With all in favor, be it resolved that the board approves and adopts the employee code of conduct policy and the employee conflict of interest policy. And before we move on, I just want to, again, we look forward to receiving the whistleblower protection policy. And again, Lawrence, thanks for your due diligence on this and bringing some of the best practices across the continent to bear on this conversation. So I do appreciate that perspective and that due diligence. So thank you very much. We'll now move to item number 10, and we have our other esteemed chair of the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee. Linda, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'm reporting on our last meeting of the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee. And we too had a very busy agenda at our meeting. We do some regular updates, and one of them was on our operational dashboard. And our quality improvement projects 1-year updates. We also had requested at the previous meeting if there was any benchmark data on how we're doing in comparison to other senior housing. And I would really like to thank the team of staff at that brought forward some really interesting information, and it does show that we're actually doing very well in comparison to other great housing corporations as well, and we're going to continue to see that. We did actually have a presentation on program partnerships and engagement, and the service model, which Tom spoke about. We now actually have biannual reports from OACH, and that needs to come to the board as well. So we're going to actually have a presentation by Melanie to the board for approval. And we also are going to actually have an update on the community space policy, which is also for approval. And I think, Chair, that we do actually have a deputation on the second item. So maybe with your permission, we can go ahead with the report from Melanie and OACH. And then I think Bill is here to depute for the second part.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and that sounds like a plan. So we'll invite Melanie, and then we'll get her deputant.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask where we are in the pages?
Yeah.
We are on item number 10, which is Equality and Tenant Engagement Committee.
Right.
And we're now moving on to the 10A, which is the biannual report from Melanie on OACH.
Okay, and does anyone have any idea of the page number? I mean, we have over 371 pages here.
I'll get the page for you right now. One moment.
Thank you very much. I'm just scrolling through here because I made some notes, but I just can't.
You got to keep scrolling, Brenda.
I know.
Brenda, we're at page 215, item 10.1, the OACH update.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Hello?
Hi, Melanie, go ahead. We can hear you, but you can't see you.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I apologize. My video keeps saying
that's okay.
On
go
and
ahead.
On.
We can hear,
So
hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Sorry. So through the chair, I am pleased to present the OACH biannual report for the period of January 1st to June 30th. So in this period, the OACH has been working with TSHC to ensure that the arrears collection process is followed before a case is referred to the OACH. The results of these efforts are positive, with 57 cases being sent back to TSHC and only 12 of these cases, or 21%, being re-referred to the OACH. I am also pleased to report that we have begun receiving referrals electronically through homes instead of manually, and this process has created time efficiencies for both OACH and TSHC. In this period, the vast majority of files were referred to the OACH, were referred with under $2,000 in arrears owing. And in addition, the OACH continued to meet with TSHC managers monthly, where any issues related to the arrears collection process compliance were addressed in real time through the monthly dashboard meetings. So to finish, I would like to advise the committee of the community partnerships the OACH has been working on to support TSHC tenants. Currently, a pilot is underway with the Toronto Rent Bank, which began in June, and we are already seeing the benefits. Today, the OACH has assisted 47 households pay off approximately $100,000 in arrears. In addition, this program has increased the OACH's ability to shorten repayment agreements or eliminate the need for one in those cases where the arrears were caught early. The OACH also has a partnership with Wood Green's TaxLink service. This partnership allows the OACH to quickly obtain the required notice of assessments to reverse losses of subsidy and complete annual or in-year reviews. And during this period, approximately $44,000 in credits were applied to accounts supporting tenants to avoid facing eviction for false arrears. So working with TSHC continues to be positive, and the results of the OACH report reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie, and thanks for the work that you do. I don't think we say this often enough. There's a lot of heavy lifting done behind the scenes by you, and I know you're a very small operation, and you do collaborate well with our own staff and with TSHC. So thanks a lot for the work that you do and the contribution you're making as well. Are there any questions either for Linda or for Melanie? Brenda, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Melanie. Melanie, with regards to just as you described, the Toronto Bank now being applied to our tenants, is there any concern about, don't know how to put this, almost like horizontal equity, that the rent bank has traditionally been for working poor people with jobs? right? And that excluded a lot of people, as a matter of fact. I mean, I know any number of cases that never got money from the rent bank. That's how stringent they were. So in this sense, our tenants are getting a subsidy for the rent to begin with. Then they fall into arrears. And now we're saying that rent bank will pay as a grant their arrears, or is it a loan? Can't hear you.
You're on mute. Sorry, Melanie.
I'm sorry, my computer is just pushing buttons. I don't know what's happening. I really apologize. So thank you. So through the chair, so yes, it is a grant. I will say historically the rent bank was only for working people who are paying market rent. So by expanding it now, it's still available only to that group of people. So it would be people on pensions, employment insurance. So groups that historically there's never been supports for if they get into arrears. There's never been any direct money that can be paid for that group of tenants. So this is new. But I think it's going to be positive because it gives people an opportunity, especially when there's retroactive charges or things like that, to get themselves back on track with paying their arrears. Did that answer your question, Brenda?
Not quite, and maybe you can't answer it. So, but there was this issue of, in a sense, it's double subsidy. We're subsidizing their rent, and then we're subsidizing the lack of payment of rent. Yeah. And I mean, I don't begrudge people getting services, but I'm aware that similarly situated people in the community are not eligible, right? So I recognize it's a pilot project, and we're testing it out to see how it works, and I'm certain it will be quite successful because it obviously will help. But you know, I was just a little concerned, and it's good to have the partnerships as well with Wood Green and neighborhood improvement. You know, I used to do volunteer work with Wood Green on tax filing, so I know all the work and how important it is to get notice of assessments in order to qualify for other programs.
Yes, Jim.
One thing, if I could say, Brenda, to your comments, if that's okay, through the chair, is with the program, it is designed to ensure successful tenancies long term. So even though, yes, the tenants that are eligible are getting a pool of money to pay towards the arrears, OACH is also working with them to work on their budgeting to ensure going forward that they're set up for success in their tenancies. So they may have encountered an issue or something preventing them to pay the rent. So we're still working with them to address the underlying issue. And that's why the program is lying with OACH, so we can provide those additional supports, because they want to ensure that if they're giving the funding out, that the tenancies are sustainable and a plan is in place long term.
And will we be monitoring year over year whether it's the same X% of people coming back to the rent bank that is having the same underlying problem? So I just wondered if there was a process in place where you're going to be monitoring who comes to the rent bank and whether they're return clients, repeat clients. And I would like to make a suggestion that you do that so that we can get a handle on exactly the nature of what's causing those arrears.
Thank you. So through the chair, I will say it's a one-time grant. So they can only apply for it once. And once they've gone through the program, they wouldn't be eligible. I think they're looking at determining whether it could be over a 12-month period. But right now, it's a kind of one-time thing for tenants. And we are monitoring that. They have their own system to monitor who's approved. And so does OACH.
Okay, I understood that they could come back after 12 months from what I read. I may have misread that, but I understood it to be they could come back after 12-month period.
Yeah, they could come back and
so that means they can apply again. So that's what I meant by tracking whether they're return clients.
Yeah. Thank you. So through the chair, yes, we are tracking it, and so is the city. They have their own database where they're also tracking the tenants who are coming through.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got Jim and then Councilor Crisanti. Jim, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate this effort from OACH, because I'm going to be facing full retirement, and with the new way that you have to apply to get your rent come down, it takes a long time, and I'm going to be facing that kind of an issue, I think. In the past, when I first was housed I was housed in Toronto community housing as subsidized housing. But I worked, I got a job, and each my income fluctuated. It went up and down. And at that time, all you had to do was report income reduction, and the following month your rent came down. It's a much longer process now. So I'm really glad to hear that you're doing this.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Councillor Crisanti, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Fareed. I'm looking at a chart here. It's headed Commissioner's Recommendations Regarding Administrative Delays and Inefficient Use of Resources. What just caught my eye, and just get some clarity on it, says send the notice to terminate. Send the notice to terminate the tenancy once. Do not send multiple notices to the tenancy. In 23, we had I guess a 12%. 12% of the tenants were notified of termination, and in 24, it looks like it went up to 16%. And they're calling this inefficient use of resources. There are times I think you need to send a notice to terminate more than once. So I just want to make sure the notices are getting to the people that they need to get to in a timely manner, and that they're very clear in case they didn't get it the first or even second time. Is there an answer for that?
Yeah. Thank you. So through the chair, what this is actually illustrating is, so definitely if the way the arrears collection process is set up is that TSHC staff are required to send one valid N4 to a tenant. If the only time they're actually supposed to serve a secondary N4 is if the first one had an administrative error. So if there was some type of error on it that they identified, so they would reserve the N4. In this case, what it's referring to is that for some reason, a second N4 was served. It's not really a large problem because it's only 16 cases. I'm sure there's many more cases that don't get to OACH where there isn't a second N4 served. So this is just one of the audit findings we found. So this is where an unnecessary second N4 is served. That's what it's indicating.
All right, but it's been identified as an unnecessary second notification.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
All
I
right.
see Brad hand is up, Councillor. I don't know, Brad, do you want to shed some light on this as well?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, through the chair. This is where the Office of the Commissioner of Housing and us work really well together. So our in-house paralegals have gone and provided training to all the frontline staff who actually do issue the N4 notices, and we've gone over some of the common mistakes that people would make, and we provided training based on Melanie's recommendation to hopefully bring that number down in the future.
That's great.
Can I take it one step further? So if someone if their tenancy is terminated, where do they go? We have a housing crisis already, or we have what do we do? Do we assist them and make sure they're looked after, and not leave it up to them to end up on the street?
Yeah, I'll take that. So through the chair, our staff provide what we refer to as a soft landing. First, let me preface that eviction is the last possible resort. Our eviction rate is below 1%. And I believe in the year to date, it's about 3 tenants. But what we do is we do a soft landing where we make contact with shelters and other locations and ensure that they have a bed. We provide the people with transportation kits to get to that shelter. We work with them in order to get them into a temporary housing accommodation within the city.
Okay, so you'll walk them through the whole process. They will not be left. And I know it's a very small number, nonetheless. But whatever it is, I just want to be have some level of comfort that they're being looked after. Given what they're going through in their life or whatever, and that they're being attended to in a compassionate way.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've revised our soft landing procedure, and social workers actually go out and meet with the people prior to the sheriff coming to advise them of these things and to secure them a place to stay.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. A good point. Good discussion. Anything else for Melanie? All right.
Sorry, I think they also can apply for the rent stabilization fund. Does that apply to them, or does that not apply to them? Does anyone?
Thank you through the chair. I think so there's housing stabilization fund, but that's only available to tenants who receive. Yeah, that's only available to tenants who receive income from ODSP or Ontario Works. So it wouldn't be available to seniors on pensions. That's kind of the funding that's available for clients from that group receiving that source of income.
So pension income is not considered the equivalent of ODSP. Okay. Well, once again, another horizontal equity issue. You see where I'm coming from on this, because that was my meaning.
All righty, so we'll move on. We'll now move to item number 10B, which is the use of community space policy. And for this, we have our deputant, Bill. Bill, it's always good to see you. Always good to hear your voice, and we're glad that you're part of our deliberation. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hunter, and members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity today to speak on item 10.2, use of community space. My name is Bill Lohman. I think many of you know I've been an advocate and an active tenant leader in Toronto housing for 9+ years. And I've had the good fortune to be a member of the STAC, as well as being a member of the implementation table that's overseeing this whole process of integrating new policies, into the buildings for seniors. First I want to say that the use of space is something that has gone around and around and around for years, and it's changed a bit here, and then it comes back, and then it comes back again in a different shape or form. At the QTE meeting, I put my hand up. I agree with this policy. I think it's a start. It's pretty complete, I think. But from a tenant's perspective, I think there are a couple sticking points that I would like to bring forward. And that is mainly it's around interpretation, and specifically around the insurance area. So if you were to go to page 234 out of your 330, it speaks about the room being booked. On 235, 5.3, it speaks about how if tenants don't apply this or don't do that, they could be banned for 2 years. How are these things going to happen? What is the process going to be? And specifically with the insurance, it states in a number of places that there may be insurance applies or it may not apply. And then in some cases it says unless otherwise stated. And so there's some ambiguity about insurance, specifically as it relates to tenants and in casual use of the space. So I would like to, put a little caveat on this that maybe this is a starting place, because there are other aspects that that are starting to come into the buildings, and we know this through the the integrated process that we've been working at here in Saranac, where we have a roundtable to try to have some organization and some accountability specifically over the community space and how it's being used and who's using it. And so I think it's a great way to to go forward. I think this policy covers a lot of that. I guess my my only issue at looking at this policy is that beyond the community, the community budget plan once a year, where tenants articulate what they want, tenants don't have a voice in this. You look at the policy, nowhere does it say anything about tenants having a voice in what's, how things are actually being decided about their communities. And so I think this is an important thing that needs to be considered going forward. So with that, I think there's been a lot of work that's gone into it. And I can see very clearly that there are many little places in here that have my footprint. So I urge you to pass this, and with the hope that we can kind of get a little more clarity around insurance, and specifically as to how it relates to tenants in their free space, which is kind of considered the extension of their living room. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, Bill. And I'd be remiss if I don't thank you for the work that you've done with Arlene and our staff in helping us craft this policy. And as you said, it is a good start. I mean, I recognize the two issues you raised around the insurance policy and also how that will be enforced. And I'm sure that we'll use some process around natural justice and due process to ensure that decisions are not made without that sort of validation piece. So that enforcement piece, I think, is a valid one. And the ongoing voice of tenant, I think, is also an important point that you have raised. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you might have of Bill. Tom, go ahead.
Right, through the chair, and Bill, thank you certainly for your comments today and your work on this policy and others, and really do appreciate your perspective into particularly in this policy work. I just want to raise that there was a point in this kind of the work and evolution of this policy that I kind of had to dive in and work with individuals around kind of where are we going to land with this policy, because it is a complex one. And so we reached out, I think, just recall, we reached out to other organizations, and nobody in housing is doing this the same. And so to Bill's point, we have to start somewhere. And it's one thing when you're a sole provider, like a building, right? You govern one building, right? We have 83. And there are different communities in each one of these. There's different expectation from the tenants in these around how that space is being used. I can attest to that from spending time with them. So Bill, thank you, for this being a start, and understanding that within kind of our relatively complex and large environment, we will have to be very sensitive to what changes and adaptations we'll have to make to the policy in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Once again, thanks, Bill. Go ahead, Brenda.
Yeah, I had similar issues as Bill, and it may be my misreading or not clarifying things for me. It almost speaks to the need maybe for a flow chart. So you have different categories, whether it's community use, whether it's tenant use, and what provisions apply. And I wasn't quite certain, correct me if I'm wrong, as to who makes the decision as to how the use of space happens. So it's one thing if it's tenant initiated, I understand that, but I wasn't clear, and maybe that's where that chart might help, as to who decides whether a wood green or neighborhood improvement group gets to use that space. And so if someone could provide some clarity on that. And I know it may be inconsistent, or maybe I misread it. Help me.
Arlene, can you take that
Arlene,
one?
go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So as it relates to the tenant-led programs, the tenants obviously would put in an application for a private event. If they're having a private event, if they're having an event that's open to all the tenants, they don't need to put in an application for that. And then the community provider programs, we have used the space agreements that they would sign with us as part of our partnership agreements to be able to come in and access that space. And we work with in the case of expanding any programming in a building, we're actually in the process of doing that right now, and we're working through the current programs that we have, and also looking at the programs that were requested by tenants earlier this year. And we would be bringing in programs that work with the schedules of other things that are happening in the building at the time. If it's a private event or a recurring tenant-led event, or an event that's, or another recurring partnership that's bringing programs into the building. We don't just bring in programs without making sure that that's what the buildings want.
So who decides whether that partnership will be signed?
So it is
is it a staff function?
Up until this point, those partnership agreements were inherited by from Toronto Community Housing,
right?
And we have followed through with those. Right. Moving forward, we have been in conversations with tenants. We had over 300 program requests between January and March of this year, and we're working to fulfill those requirements that were outlined. So it's being informed by what tenants are telling us that they want, and then we work on getting the right partners to provide those services directly to tenants in buildings.
So those 300 requests are things other than social recreational, or are they including social recreational?
Including.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we stay with the existing ones. Mm-hmm. That's a done deal, is what you're saying. Hopefully accountability measures will apply going forward.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And then going forward, it will be informed by tenants articulating what they'd like.
That's correct.
And then the staff role is to negotiate and set terms and measures, et cetera, et cetera.
That is
okay. Okay. So just to highlight that informed bit, which is the subtle nuance thing, that we don't somehow accidentally let it drop. You know what I mean? These things can happen in the rush of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure there's a feedback loop in terms of what tenants want or need, and we can help with the identification of need, because we shouldn't assume everyone knows what they need, right? But I just want to make sure that we have that tenant informed, if not tenant directed.
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, we have built that into
Thanks. Jim, go ahead.
I'd just like to say that I joined the board to ensure that tenants' voices were heard, and I believe that Toronto Community Housing and the City of Toronto are listening to tenants. I think that Arlene and everyone involved in the implementation table and in the process to get to that implementation table have done an outstanding job of trying to ensure that tenant voices remain the purpose of what we're doing. And I'd just like to thank you all for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, so with that, Arlene, I'll invite you to walk through a quick walkthrough of the community space policy.
Sure, thank you through the chair. There are 5 slides related to this to this material today. We're asking the board to approve the use of community space policy as outlined in attachment 1 of the report, and retire the non-residential use of space policy and make it effective as of January 1, 2025. We did present this to QTE on September 30th. There was some valuable feedback that we gained through that process, which we have incorporated on the move forward. And with respect to Mr. Lohman's comments about iterations and changes, we will continue to iterate as required as we go through the process of introducing these new policies. On slide 3 of the deck that accompanies this report, you will see that we did get feedback from tenants and staff that the policy needed to be more tenant-facing, and we have consolidated the policy into 1 rather than 2 policies as it were before. On slide 4, we talk about the guidelines. We did get input from tenants and staff around the expectations and obligations. We are developing guiding principles for the policy for staff, tenants, and agencies, and there will be a separate set of community space guidelines for tenants to use when using the community space. And I would like to note that the community space guidelines that we are developing have been directly informed by Mr. Lohman, and he was directly involved in physically crafting that. So we're really grateful to him for that support as well. We also received feedback from QTE on defining their permitted types of usage within this community space, and we will be putting a terms and conditions space on our website to explain how the terms and conditions of use need to be addressed. And then there was moving to slide 5, the discussion about the fees. We have eliminated the deposit fees, and we have simplified the booking process for tenants. And finally, we are rolling out a quarterly building calendar to support the use of space, to make it as easy as possible for tenants to know what's happening in their buildings. That continues to be a work in progress, because there is not one integrated tool that provides us the information about what all 83 buildings are doing. So as we have that information, we update that and we repost the information quarterly so that is available to tenants. So with that, we'd like to ask for the board approval to move forward with implementing a new use of community space policy for Toronto Seniors Housing.
I know we had a good discussion at QT, and looks like Arlene has built into the updated presentation the comments and concerns she heard from us. So thank you, Arlene. Appreciate that. And again, this has been a difficult, challenging process, and thanks for shepherding this, and thanks to Bill and others who have helped to make it a policy that I think the board can deliberate and hopefully approve. Are there any comments on it? If not, go ahead, Brenda.
Just a quick suggestion that in your guidelines and in the future work, that you keep in mind down the road as we get more into home health care and personal care supports over time, whether it's through the LHINs or health teams or whatever, that is often overlooked, that their need for office space. So just keep that in mind as a possible use of space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask for approval of the use of a community space policy. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Brenda, seconded by Linda. All in favor? That is approved. So with that, be it resolved that the board approves and adopts the use of community space policy as presented. We'll now move to item number 11, which is a report from Lawrence on the Audit, Finance, and Risk Committee. So Lawrence, over to you, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Audit, Finance, and Risk Committee met on October 2nd and reviewed the 2025 budget update and the current financial results. Vince will be presenting them later today. The committee also reviewed the proposed enterprise risk management policy. In the closed session, the committee reviewed the renewal of insurance policies as well. That concludes my report. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Are there any questions for Lawrence? Okay, hearing none. Thank you again, Lawrence, and thanks to your committee for its deliberations. So we'll now move to item number 12, which is a motion to end this session and move into our closed session under Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation Bylaw 1-2021, Section 4.19, subsection 1J. So can I get a motion to move into closed session? Moved by Brenda, seconded by, I can't see my entire screen, so if you can state your name, please. So moved by Brenda, seconded by Linda.
Linda, no problem.
All in favor? That is approved. So we'll give our technicians to get us into closed session, and we'll report back once we've concluded our deliberations.
We have ended live stream.